Greetings, I'm Evan Swenson. I'm an author and a book publisher. I'm also the developer of Author Masterminds, sponsors of Readers and Writers Book Club. Today we're having a conversation with Marianne Paul. Marianne Paul is America's Lady of Supernatural Thrillers and author of the book DULLAHAN. Marianne, good afternoon or morning or evening, wherever you are.
It's good afternoon and good evening, actually, Evan. How are you?
Yeah, it's good. You know, in the background, as we look here, you've got a man on a horse with some kind of an instrument he's holding. What is that?
That's a sky that he's got hold of. That is our DULLAHAN from the book.
Oh, that's from the cover of the book.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, Marianne, I'm curious, okay? You wrote in the description of the book DULLAHAN, which the subtitle is The Haunting of Boardman's Crossing. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And you wrote for the description, a sinister secret lies hidden in the swamps of East Texas.
Yes, I did write that.
Okay. That's got to be a major part of DULLAHAN's.
It is. It's the DULLAHAN actually protects this major secret that's in the swamps of East Texas.
So the man entity, whatever it is that's riding the horse over your shoulder, that's a DULLAHAN, or is DULLAHAN.
That is my version of a DULLAHAN. A DULLAHAN is actually an Irish headless horseman. So it's the Irish version of Sleepy Hollow, in a sense.
Oh.
That is who this writer represents in the book.
Okay, so this guy wasn't out cutting grain.
Oh gosh, no. No, this guy is out cutting up humans.
Okay. So,
but he does it on command and does it for a reason.
So there's probably those that would say there are a lot of sinister secrets lying hidden in Texas, but the one that you're talking about specifically, a sinister secret lies in the swamps of East Texas.
It does.
So that brings up, as I say, I'm curious. I thought Texas was all sagebrush and desert.
Indeed not.
Really? There are
No.
swamps in Texas.
Yes, there are. There's a swamp in East Texas. You see, Texas, although not as big as Alaska, is very large, and so it has different landscapes and different topography. So the west side of Texas, that's your desert and sagebrush stuff. And the east side of Texas is really lush and green and is humid. It's like Louisiana because it's right up against Louisiana. So it's that same type of environment.
Oh, there are swamps.
There is a swamp.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so tell us about this sinister secret.
I'm not telling you the sinister secret because that would give away the book. But
Give us a little taste of it.
well, the taste is that every few years, people seem to disappear in the town of Boardman's Crossing. And Boardman's Crossing is on this swamp in East Texas. And nobody knows why those people disappear, or at least many of them won't tell you why it happens, and they cover it up. So finding out what's happening and why is at the center is buried in this swamp.
So, is there a Boardman's Crossing, Texas?
No, there is not. That's my fictional town. It is based, though, on, there's an East Texas town called Jefferson, but this is actually which is on Caddo Lake, and Caddo Lake is the swamp I'm basing the book on in East Texas. It says it's a lake, but Caddo Lake actually is the only natural lake in Texas and is a swamp. So.
Now let's go back and say that again. There's only one natural lake in Texas, and it's a swamp?
Yes, that's correct. And we have many, many lakes in Texas, many if you look at the map. But the natural lake, the only natural one that I'm aware of, is Caddo Lake, which is a swamp. So.
And so there's sinister secrets in this lake in Texas. It's the only lake, but it's a swamp in Texas, has sinister secrets in it.
In my book, it does. Now, I don't know if in reality it does, but I will say that it's a mysterious enough location that they could definitely hold many serious, sinister secrets.
So you have been to the sinister secret lake?
Yes, I have.
The swamp?
Yes, I have. I love it. It's beautiful. I was out on a boat in it, experiencing the bald cypress trees that are just astounding with the moss that isn't really moss hanging down from them. And there's so many, just all the lily ponds and lily pads and the animals that are there is just astounding.
So you've got the only lake in Texas that's not a lake, it's a swamp, and there's moss hanging from the trees that's not really moss.
And literally everybody calls it like Spanish moss, but this is more of a fungus than the moss is. So, but it looks just like Spanish moss.
Well, what else is there in your book that is, but it isn't? What is in Boardman's Crossing in your book, DULLAHAN, that is, but really isn't?
Boardman's Crossing obviously is fictional, and it's based on another town that, a small East Texas town. People may or may not understand what they look like, but usually they're, white clapboard, old time looking gas stations, old time general stores, a place where you don't see a Macy's or HEB or any of those big, huge grocery stores. So Boardman's Crossing is based on the small Texas towns that people go through, and like they used to say, my mom would say, if you blink, you're going to miss it. That's what Boardman's Crossing is like.
So the freeway doesn't run through Boardman's Crossing?
No, it does not. It doesn't run through Jefferson either, by the way.
but the freeway is a long ways from the lake there.
Yes, it is.
That's really a swamp.
Right.
Yeah, okay. That has moss. This really isn't moss. Yeah, I get in the picture here. So, but always, Marianne, always, the thing that makes me curious about talking with a writer, especially a writer that writes about something that just seems to me is out of character with the author. You're not the spiritual, supernatural thriller person that I would expect. But so how did you come about this plot that involves a secret sinister?
It was really interesting, to be honest. The secret sinister is usually pretty easy for me because, my other 3 books, pretty much it's a spiritual warfare book. This one, though, I decided it was time for my characters to get out of Alaska for a little while, and go on a vacation. So, yeah, well, their vacations are never quite the same as yours and mine. But they literally, that's what happened. And what was really funny was that I started basing this in Louisiana or East Texas. I guess I started in November of the year before. And in April of that year, I was about, 3/4 of the way through writing this book. And I was living in Alaska, as you know. And my husband walked into my office and said, "Hi there, we're moving to Texas." That was just the weirdest thing, that I had started this book not knowing I was moving to Texas. And I literally started a book about East Texas in Louisiana before I knew I was moving here.
Now that is a sinister secret that you
That was, right?
told. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very easy after looking at the swamps and being in the swamps to go back and do some research on not only slavery, but on Irish slavery. And because that's where this started, was I looked at it and went, what the Irish were used to build the Great Canal in New Orleans. And they didn't want to use their slaves at the time because the Irish were more expendable. So they would put them in the swamps to get the fever and die. And they died many, many times. And, you know, they were in bondage in their own way. And that's how it all started, was where would you do if you wanted to run? What would you do? Where would you run to? How would you get out of this situation?
Now, are those kind of things in your book?
Yes, that's in the prologue.
Huh. Wow.
Which is how Boardman's Crossing and the Sinister secret occurred in the first place.
You're not going to tell us what that
I'm not.
sinister secret is. Okay.
No.
All right. So you say in your write-up about the book, you say, look out, East Texas. The Cove is coming. You won't tell us the secret sinister, but can you tell us the Cove? What's the Cove?
The Cove is coming to town? Well, that would be the people from the Cove, because Ravens Cove is the Cove in Alaska. And anybody who's read the other books will know what they have had to battle all along. And that's why I'm saying, look out, the Cove is coming to town, and what's worse is their nemesis is there too. Right at the time they think they're not gonna have a problem, there it is.
So the guy with a bloody tool in the back, it's a DULLAHAN.
Yes.
He's peculiar to Texas. He's not the same guy he's not the Cove.
He was not in the Cove, no.
But
he has been brought into being by the same nemesis that brought in the Qumrandi and a few others nasty ones in the Cove.
So he was invited by the Cove to come and join the secret sinister club.
No. You have to read the book. But you'll find out how he was developed just by reading the prologue.
Well, you said in your write-up about DULLAHAN, the haunting of Boardman's Crossing, you said something to the effect that you might want to take cover. So,
yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly, because it gets pretty busy.
Yeah.
As you know, my books are pretty action-packed.
Yes, they are.
So
Mary Ann, you're not going to tell us the secret, the sinister secret. You have straightened out a little bit about the Cove and DULLAHAN. I think we're getting that picture. But before we end this conversation, is there anything that you could tell us about it that, like, different than the lake that's not a lake, it's a swamp, and moss that's not moss, it's something else? Is there something you could tell us about the book that you wrote, DULLAHAN, the haunting at Boardman's Crossing? Is there anything you could tell us about that you could tell us? You're not telling us a lot.
Well, I can tell you, let's see, well, I thought I told you quite a bit, that you're going to meet some new characters, that there's a wonderful bed and breakfast and some Southern characters that come into play in this, and you'll get to go to the graveyard that is in Jefferson, in a sense, and be there for a while. And I don't know what else I can tell you, Evan.
We're going to go read headstones and stuff like that?
Well, they're only one headstone, to find out. That'll help you find out how Ken is involved in this. See, you're going to get to meet Ken, who is Kat's fiance at this point. Yeah. You get to meet Ken's Aunt Rose, and so you'll get to understand a little more about his side of the family, because that's where his side of the family lives, is in that area.
So he's kind of coming home, in a sense?
They were coming, yeah, since they're coming down for a convention, they decided they would visit Aunt Rose too. And so you get to know some more about him in this book. It's more about how he grew up and what happened to his parents and some other things. And you get to meet a young boy in a psychiatric ward. That'll be really interesting for people, I think.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Marianne, I know that you've got our interest picked here.
I hope so.
And you're not going to tell us anything that we're going to have to read the book.
Yes, but I think you'd enjoy the book.
Yeah, we will. Okay, well, Marianne, thank you for this conversation about your book, Dullahan, how it came about, and you as a writer. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you, Evan. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, but we'll look forward to you and I having a conversation again when the new book
Yes.
comes out.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Not going to give that away yet, though.
No, you're not even going to tell us the title.
Sure, I will. Andalusia Forest.
Say that again.
The Andalusia Forest.
Really? And is that in Texas too? There's not a forest. It's a desert or something.
No, and this one's it's going to be really fabricated, but there are places like it in Texas. So it'll be still in the East Texas area, but not in the swamp.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again, Marianne. We'll talk with you later.
Thank you so much.
You bet. And in the meantime, keep in touch.